Hey, you beautiful beings. Welcome to Empowered Human with Nina Garcia. I am your host, and you are listening to the throwback episodes. Yeah, I have officially taken a pause on creating new episodes for the podcast so that I can focus on writing the book. It became very clear that while I have loved doing the podcast, I'm getting these episodes out every week to you all piecemeal. I was like, no more, no more. You all were like, please, can you get us all those skills and tools, Nina, in one area so that we can do the empowered human journey, so that we can really see what it's like from start to finish? To which I say, yes, absolutely. Let me get this to you. Yes. So what you're going to be hearing is this. You're going to be hearing throwback episodes from all 6 seasons, okay? It's not going to be every episode, so don't freak out on me yet. But it is going to be some of the episodes that were highlighted, that were popular, that we think, maybe you all missed and we want to bring it back. You're going to be hearing throwback episodes, and I am going to be listening along with you. I too want to hear about the journey and experience the journey that I had as we moved from Triggered Can We Play With That, the original podcast, all the way to Empowered Human with Nina Garcia. So you're going to hear personal stories. You're going to hear interviews. You're going to be given skills in every episode. Yes, you're going to be given tools in every episode for you to become skilled. And it is totally up to you whether you want to listen. If it's not the episode for you, skip to the next week, right? You just take what works for you, leave what doesn't. And if there's some stuff you're curious about, why don't you just go ahead and put that on the shelf? The podcast has always been about putting resources in the hands of people without needing to pay for it, right? And so this is no different. Even with these throwback episodes, what you're going to hear is this. We're going through, just as I said, you're going to still hear me talk at the beginning of each episode, letting you know, hey, we've had a transition. You're going to hear the original intro to the episode. You're going to hear the show music, and then you're going to hear the full original episode. This could mean that dates are off, that times are off, that people are talked about, that may no longer be in our lives, right? Just be aware of that. At the very end of the episode, you're going to see this face again come back to remind you that it was a throwback episode and to maybe offer you some adventure challenges as you move from week to week, right? Though the format of the episode did change over the years that we've done this podcast, the value is still there. So if you like something, definitely hit me up on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina and be like, Nina, I love that throwback episode about XYZ thing. Yes, fill in the blank with that. Let me know. And if there's something that you're looking for in the meantime, also hit me up on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina and let me know. Otherwise, stay curious and enjoy the ride, folks. I'll be right along there with you. Welcome to Empowered Human, the dramatically playful podcast that invites you to heal humanity, the one within you, me, and the world at large. I'm your host, drama therapist, empowerment specialist, and not to mention empowered human, Nina Garcia. And I'm so stoked you're joining me on the journey. Every Wednesday, you are invited to explore transforming from powered to empowered with genuinely human stories of courageous existence, healing from invalidation, and truly belonging to you. So wherever you are on the spectrum, from empowerment curious to empowered human ambassador, this podcast is designed to humanize. Get ready to lean into your edge, heal your worldview, and finally belong to you. This is Empowered Human. Hey you, Nina here. This episode plays with standing by versus standing up, and it weaves in an intergenerational challenge. So I'm curious. Are you ready to play? And let's take a breath in. So I gotta tell you, when I wanted to do this episode on standing by your values versus standing up for them, there were 10,000 different examples of how I could have done this. And by 10,000, I mean 3 came to mind. So if I had really thought about this, though, I say 10,000 because I bet there are thousands upon thousands of examples of moments when we get triggered because we're struggling with the idea of, on the one hand, man, somebody just said something that is like rubbing me the wrong way. Do I like say something right now? Yeah, tell me, have you ever been in that position where somebody says something that is like even a little bit against your values, but maybe even like if we're talking like full on triggered, fully against your values, and you're like, I need to say something, but I don't know if I should. I don't know if it's my place. I don't know if it's my business. And like all of this is going on internally, right? It's like a circus in there. Well, as a drama therapist, I focus on empowering people to get through moments like that, especially when we think about being triggered by a moment like that. And because it is the holiday season, and it is the holiday season, people are mostly, even with the pandemic, going to be spending time with and around people they know, whether that's in person or virtually. And things tend to pop up that happens will be very triggering for people around the holidays, but really anytime we get around family. Right. So when we talk today about standing by what you believe in versus standing up for it, as in more actionable, we're going to sort of compare and contrast that. I'm also going to go ahead and offer you a continuum, because you all know, if you've been listening to this podcast, that we love continuum thinking. We're challenging the binary here. We're getting into that there is a spectrum on most, if not all, things that exist in this world. There is a spectrum of thinking that we can go ahead and embrace in order to enhance our perspective and ultimately empower us to just live better lives. So, why is it important, you may be asking me, for you to understand the difference between standing by versus standing up? Why is the continuum important? Well, let me offer you the continuum first, and then let me hope that you'll begin to fill in some blanks. And if not, I promise you, I will offer you a real example and I will fill in some blanks for you. All right. First things first, the standing by continuum. Now, I'm going to give you numbers 1 to 5. Yes, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And within this continuum, 1 is going to be avoidant, as in withdrawn, pulled away. 5, the other end of the continuum, is going to be activist, as in planning ahead. People know where you're coming from before you even get there. So if 1 is avoidant, when something triggering pops up, if you're a 1, you are going to get up and walk away. You're not going to want to deal with it. If you're a 2, you're a bystander. That means when something triggering happens, you stand by, but you say nothing. Number 3, standing by. Standing by your values is different than being a bystander, which says nothing. They look on, say nothing. They may be thinking a lot, but again, they say, fill in the blank, nothing. Standing by your values means that you note what's happening in the moment and you speak for yourself alone. That is standing by your values. It's claiming it and speaking your truth in that triggering moment. If you are a 4 on the continuum, you're standing up. That means you are actively inserting yourself into the moment in order to shift or create a relationship with, or do something that involves someone or something beyond yourself. That is standing up for your values. And if you're 5, like we said before, you are an activist. When that triggering moment happens, you probably were already saying something. You've said something before. People knew that you were going to say something, right? You are the activist. So we look at this continuum as we look at all continuums without judgment. Sometimes we need to be in 1 or 5 for whatever it is that will keep us safe or other people safe. I'm not going to explore that too much here because I want to offer an example And I'll offer some fictional ways that we could have dealt with that from a real example, though. And in this example, it is going to deal with some intergenerational challenges. There are 3, I will refer to them as characters, but they're based on real people. We like to say characters here because I cannot encompass the full spectrum of a human being in the telling of this moment. I can only share with you this moment. And so I like to name characters because it's not really real outside of that moment. That said, I really want you to think about how is this like things that I have experienced in my life? Think about that. Put it in your own context. And here is the moment. Let's take a breath. Picture it. You're in the living room, talking with family. And in this case, we'll put it in my living room. Talking with family, and there are some adults at a table. They're having conversation. There is some children around. One in particular is sitting on the couch playing a video game in the same room that the adults are having conversation. Mind you, it's not an inappropriate conversation that the adults are having, but it is about other adults, not necessarily something that a child would be interested in. Nonetheless, the conversation does become heated, emotions begin to stir in the adults, and Luca, we will call the child sitting playing a video game, turns around and says, "Hey, wait, what are you guys talking about?" Because naturally, Luca is curious. He wants to know, hey, what's the chisme like? What's the gossip? Okay. Totally fair, totally reasonable, so human. Well, I'm sitting there with the other adults, and in a moment, just like a snap of a whip, Cherry, someone from the grandmotherly generation, speaks out and she says, this is an adult conversation. You need to see your way out of it, sir. And she has all this attitude, and it was quick, and she very much so was putting him in his place. Now we'll pause this moment. Here is the potential for a triggering moment. For many of us, we might be very familiar with the idea of a grandmotherly figure saying something like, "This is an adult conversation, see your way out of it." Being able to communicate with respect is a tool that we can offer the younger generation. It's a tool we can offer each other as adults, no matter what the age. Healthy communication equals healthy relationships. And so in this moment, I was triggered, and I thought, what am I going to do to respond effectively, if anything at all? Now, if we think about the standing by continuum, that 1 through 5 that we talked about earlier, if 1 is avoidant, I might have gotten up from that adult conversation and just left the room, didn't even want to deal with it. How many of you are the people who get up and leave because you are avoiding that hard moment? Take a breath in. Accept it if that's you, without judgment. If, in this moment, I were a 2, the bystander, I might have stood there, maybe widened my eyes, maybe done nothing, and just watched as it went down, and watched as the adults picked their conversation back up and continued, with the child going back to his video game. How many of you are bystanders? When something triggering happens, you are the one who just watches. Accept it if that's you, without judgment. Then we move on to 3, standing by. If you're standing by your values, you might say something in that moment like, "For me, I'm actually totally okay if kids ask me questions. If I feel uncomfortable with it, then I'll let them know." That would be standing by your values. Now, this podcast is about empowering people, so that's why we're using that value. If you are the kind of person who stands by your values, take a breath in, accept it without judgment. We'll continue. If you're 4 and you're standing up for your values in this moment, you might have said something like, "Whoa there, Cherry. Hey, Luca, just so you know, between you and I, if you ever want to ask me anything, you can. Your relationship with Cherry might be different, but between you and me, if I feel uncomfortable saying something for you or to you, then I will let you know that I feel uncomfortable. If I can answer the question, then I'll answer it. Does that sound fair?" Which is actually what I said in this moment. And Luca nodded. And he went back to his video game. And I went back to my conversation with the adults. If you're a 5 in this case, an activist in this moment, you might have gotten into it with Cherry. You might have started something about how it's so important that children are spoken to about skills and tools and how they have to learn these things. And if they don't learn when they're children, then they're never going to learn when they're an adult. That is you really standing up for an idea and a principle that you want to change the way that this family works. If you are a 5, an activist about something in the moment, take that breath in and accept it without judgment. Think about your own family. Think about moments like this when someone says something that you may or may not agree with. Now, I know lots of people who will agree that children should not speak up to adults. And we are definitely not trying to suggest that I am more right than Cherry, or that Cherry is more right than I, simply that we are different. What you heard is Cherry standing up for her values and me standing up for mine. So when you find that you yourself are being triggered in a moment like this, really sit with your own truth and ask yourself, what am I sitting with? Do I need to stand by right now? Do I need to stand up for this right now? What do I need to not be triggered? I needed to stand by and stand up. Now, you may totally disagree. You may think that children should definitely not speak to adults. But like we all know, this podcast is not about right or wrong. Imagine those moments when you are there with family and somebody says something that is really triggering. It might be grandma or grandpa even. Those people that you're just not supposed to speak back to or up to because it's going to be rude. Don't be rude about it. Just stand by your values and state your own truth. And if needed, consider standing up for it. Now, because of course we look at the continuum without judgment, maybe there is a time to avoid. Maybe there is a time to bystand. A time to stand by, to stand up, and even to be an activist. But we can't be all of those things all the time. We can't be even one of those things all the time. Because we're human. You gotta give it some flexibility, friends. So we've come to the end of the episode, and I'm wondering, what's your takeaway? I mean, for those of you who enjoy a bit of self-exploration, I'll leave you with this question for this upcoming week. Where are you generally on the standby continuum? Do you lean more toward avoidant, or do you lean more toward activist? Do you feel like you get stuck in a certain role and that's the one you're playing out all the time? Or do you feel like you're missing a role that you would really like to have, even some of the time? Do you feel like you get stuck in narratives like I can't speak back to them because they're older? Or challenges and being stuck with lines like, that's not my business. I could not interrupt that or say anything. That would be so rude. If you get stuck in roles, narratives, or with lines, I really want to encourage you to be curious about where you are on the standby continuum, and without judgment to ask yourself, is this where I want to be? And in fact, taking it up a notch, is this where I intend to be? What is my intention where I'm at? It's me again, reminding you that this was a throwback episode. I hope that you were able to take something from it, even one little nugget of wisdom, and use that between this week and next week, right? The purpose of these episodes is to give you tools. It is up to you to decide whether you want to become skilled in them. You picking up what I'm putting down? So take a tool, take something, a perspective, a moment, something that works for you, and use it in your life to transform hard conversations into teachable moments, to transform the way that you play with scary moments, right? To transform your life, to help make you the most courageous, most healing-oriented, most belonging person, right? No matter where you go, that you belong to yourself everywhere you go, right? Courage, healing, belonging, whatever it is that you are taking from this episode, take it with you so that you can get out there and live your most vibrant life, you beautiful human being, okay? All right, I'm signing off for now, but I'm gonna see you soon, okay? I'm gonna see you real soon. Bye for now. Thank you so much for being willing to explore healing your humanity on Empowered Human. I hope you found at least one new way to transform your worldview from powered to empowered. If you took something from the show, please take a moment of your time and subscribe to Empowered Human. And if it really nourished you, leave us a review. Your feedback helps me understand what our community needs. Not to mention, it helps others discover the empowered human life. So keep this last bit in mind. All the visual goodies come with me on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina. Stay up to date there on upcoming episodes, behind the scenes goodness, and reels dropping knowledge. Thank you again for being part of the Empowered Human community. Until next time, stay curious.